Hey guys. I had a lot of fun recording the last video, so I thought I might as well make another one here. So this one, I thought it'd be fun to kind of talk about the Viktor matchup spread. Viktor's a really interesting character. He has a really strange matchup spread. The basic way it works is he kind of loses against all the good decks and he wins against all the bad decks. In this video, I'll go through each of the matchups and kind of talk about my thoughts on them, how much Victor is or isn't winning, general thoughts on how to play the matchup, and just general tips for how to play. We're gonna take these one by one here. This top tier, the green one, 70-30, like this one you shouldn't be losing um, any best of threes. You can lose a game or two. It's fine, but generally you shouldn't be losing best of threes to this. These decks are greatly favored towards Victor. There's actually a surprising number of these. Obviously, Victor's a decent deck, so it's going to beat a lot of the bad decks. That's kind of the way it works. It's kind of a bit of a gatekeeper in the meta. 60-40, Victor favored. You could realistically lose this, especially if there's like a skill differential. If you're not so great, but your opponents are quite good, you can realistically lose these matchups. But in an even matchup, you shouldn't be losing these matchups. 55-45, that matchup is like slightly Vickard favored. It's also just a skill matchup. If it's like realistic to lose this matchup, it can also be randomly, determined. If you brick or your opponent has like some god draw, then it's realistic that you could lose these. 50-50, true equal matchups. There's not too many of them. 45-55, these are like kind of coin flippy matchups where you can win. There's a decent amount of skill expression. Victor plays mostly face up as a deck, so your losing matchups are going to like it's hard to skill your way out of a losing matchup, which is part of the reason why Victor's not actually that good of a deck. But again, skill can is always a thing in this game. 40-60, these are the matchups that you will suffer a lot on, and it'll like feel really unplayable. These matchups are winnable. Any skill differential, you can easily take games, take sets, and if they have bad draws, which any deck is subject to having bad draws, and just a slightly not optimal draw into Victor is enough to lose the matchup. So first, we're just gonna go through this in the order that they're presented here. So Volibear, not gonna talk too long about this. This is a 70-30 matchup for Victor. Um, there isn't really a Victor a Volibear deck that is like really capable of beating Victor. Personally haven't played against many Volibears. There aren't too many in my local scene. There's like one Dragon's Volibear player that I played. It was like a really quick 2-0. Volibear just doesn't have tools. He doesn't go fast enough. Um, Victor has incredible tools to remove anything that Volibear puts out. Call the Weak, Hidden Blade, Grand Stratagem, Imperial Decree, all basically destroy anything that Volibear wants to do. If any deck allows Victor to do what he wants to do without interrupting him, which is build up a really big board, get a bunch of points, and then finish out the game with Stratagem and Decree, if a deck isn't able to deal with that, then it will have an extremely difficult time beating Victor. Let's talk about Kai'Sa. Kai'Sa, this matchup like really sucks. It's like realistically in like the 40-60 area, it's pretty bad. This one is like super skill expressive though, not really on the Victor's part. This is super skill expressive from the Kai'Sa's part. Kai'Sa needs to play this matchup properly and really respect Victor's threats. If Kai'Sa isn't respecting Victor properly, she can easily lose. In the previous skirmish that I played last week, which I won, I played against Kai'Sa round 2, which I 2-0'd the Kai'Sa, and then I played against another Kai'Sa in round 3, and I 2-1 the Kai'Sa. Neither of these players were particularly, they weren't like super Kai'Sa specialists. I don't really know my round 3 opponent that well, but I know my round 2 opponent. How Kai'Sa needs to go into this matchup is really remove Victor's units whenever they can. Kai'Sa's goal is to have more units, equal or more units than Victor on board. So this is like not that hard for Kai'Sa to do. Her turn 1, she plays a 2-drop. like if going first, she plays like a 2-drop. Turn 2, you can play like Falling Star Noxus Hopeful, and Victor loses. There's really not that much left for Victor to do at that point. If Kai'Sa's going second, she can play 2-drop and then Hextech Ray, whatever comes in to the battlefield on like your turn 2. Um, and at that point, like Kai'Sa also like basically went first. So it's like a really really difficult matchup. If Kai'Sas aren't respecting you properly or are not addressing your threats correctly, it's still very very possible for Kai'Sa to lose. Things like not drawing enough falling stars or not being willing to falling star something like 3-drop plus recruit or falling star Victor, something like that. Like Kai'Sa needs to be willing to expend her resources because Kai'Sa has so many more resources than Victor's ever gonna have access to. So she's allowed to do really bad trades so that Victor falls behind and Kai'Sa's able to kind of snowball the game away. If you're able to stabilize in the mid game with like a lot of recruits and a lot of 3-drops, Kai'Sa can have difficulty coming back. What you need to do is make sure Kai'Sa does not have units on board after she removes your units. So if she's at 7 mana, you have units on board she Catherine's you, and you still have units left over and she does not, you're going to win that game. There's a really, really good chance you're going to win that game. What Kai'Sa needs to do is have units on board and protect those units using her removal spells, and basically passively generate points through having the units on board. If she doesn't respect that, then you can pretty easily close out the game with sprites and singularity. Kai'Sa's not good at holding battlefields, so if you're able to keep up and go ahead at some point during the game, you have a pretty good chance. Legos is your big side-in to this matchup. I kind of talked about this in my video yesterday. Legos like kind of sucks. You really really need to drop him early and leverage him as much as you can and protect him as good as you can. Some Kai'Sa players that are experienced into the Victor matchup will side in unchecked power just for Legos. That would suck if they play it. They usually only side in one, so it's not like super high chance that they're gonna get it like off rip. Like the turn after you move Legos into a battlefield, they'll unchecked power you. Like that doesn't really happen that often. I've never had it happen to me, even though I've played against like 3 or 4 Kai'Sa opponents who have sided in unchecked power. So it's not something that you have to worry too much about, but it's just something you need to be aware of. Legos is like your raid boss. You need to protect him as good as you can. Otherwise, you're going to be down so many runes. Like the number of games I'm against Kai'Sa, she's ahead on points. She has like 4 more cards in hand. And she has like 4 more runes and she has more units. It's like a completely unplayable matchup at that point. You really need to get ahead of Kai'Sa in points and stay even or ahead of units against Kai'Sa, and then you have a shot. Next, we can talk about the Jinx matchup. This is also just a 70-30 matchup. Jinx isn't really a viable deck. She doesn't really have tools. She's just like really bad compared to Annie, and red purple just doesn't have the legs to keep pace with Victor. Like their units kind of suck. There are red units that are good, but Jinx just doesn't have the rune economy to leverage them properly. You'll find like the Jinx like dream hand is like going second, you play Jinx Demolitionist, you discard Double Flame Chomper, you have a million stats on board. Like I've had people do that style of thing where they play like Jinx, discard Flame Choppers and Scrap Heap, have 2/3/3s on the field, Jinx attack or Jinx a 4 and she attacks as a 6. Like I've had that happen and it's still like not even close. It's not even close. Jinx does not have the rune economy. Jinx does not have the draw economy to be able to keep up with Victor. Victor's too fast. His removal's too efficient. Singularity just blows his deck completely out of the water. With like typical Jinx lists, there's also like the Revive Jinx list. It's also not playable. I think it's like slightly better for Jinx. Like it might go down to like 60-40 or something. But like Revive Jinx is like just too slow. She plays like some early jobs, like she'll play like Traveling Merchant and stuff, but you can't protect Traveling Merchant like you can with Annie. Annie gets to move units back to base, move Traveling Merchant back to base, get a lot of procs off that. Jinx just doesn't have the runes to be able to do that, so Traveling Merchant kind of just dies. And they'll bring out their Mind Splitter and their Volibear and stuff like that. Like Call the Wake just instantly kills it, Hidden Blade instantly kills it, Imperial Decree instantly kills it, Grand Stratagem instantly kills it. So you're not really too worried about the Revive Jinx deck. Darius, it's like always the hook Darius. It's like somewhere in like the 60-40, 55-45 range. I'm tempted to put in the 60-40 range. There are like some variants of hook that are a little bit more annoying to deal with. There is like big hook Darius, which goes into Harness Dragon and Karma. That one's surprisingly difficult to deal with. Karma is quite large. She goes to 7, so Singularity doesn't kill her. And then Harness Dragon, just sniping off units can be annoying, and the 6 body is pretty annoying as well. Nobody really plays that list because it's kind of worse into everything else. Generally, what you're going to be playing against with Darius is like the typical hook package that goes up to 4. Plays Vanguard Captain, plays Spectral Matron, plays Draven, Vayne, Darius, and that's kind of the whole list. That one, I haven't really had too many problems with that list. I've lost games. I have not lost sets to that deck. It feels kind of like it's trying to be Viktor, but slightly worse. The really big leveraging tool that you have over Darius in this list is Sprite Mother. Sprites really, really destroy the deck. They have a similar plan to Viktor, where they try to commit minimal units onto boards to score points and then break boards through things like Draven or Grand Stratagem to swing tempo, get extra points. Problem is Viktor does it better, or Viktor does it better specifically into Darius. Sprites are so good. They'll kill anything that they're trying to hold a battlefield with, and anything trying to battle into sprites really it costs Darius a lot to beat into Sprite. They don't really have units that are like 4 or larger. It's like just Kaisa. And if they're like accelerating Kaisa into a Sprite, you're like not too sad about it. It's better than them accelerating into like a normal 3-drop or something like that. They also don't really have removal for Viktor. So Viktor can kind of just sit back and generate you free recruits. That's not something that Darius is able to do. Best that they can do is hook into Matron, hook into Vanguard Captain to generate more recruits. But you don't really have too many issues with this list. The sideboard is pretty interesting into this. There's a lot of your decks, it plays a lot like the Viktor matchup, where there's a lot of your cards in your deck that are like kind of okay, but not great. Like Call the Wake kind of feels pretty shitty into this deck. If you're able to snipe something that's not a recruit, it's a good card. But if you're sniping recruits, like it sucks. It sucks a lot. Shen's pretty good as a sideboard. If you want to put Salvage into the sideboard, you can. Salvage is super good for hitting Baited Hook. If you're hitting Seal with it, it's like fine. You'll probably end up ahead because they'll be recycling a bunch of runes for their hook. But generally, you're wanting to salvage hook. You can do it. I don't think it's necessary. I think you win this matchup regardless. You can probably side out Imperial Decree. You can put in like play like 2 stratagems, 0 decrees, kind of run it that way. You should note that if you do play Decree, you can do some funky stuff with the trading of it. So if you have something like a battlefield, like a blank battlefield that has recruit Vanguard Captain in it, and you run a 3-might unit, with Imperial Decree you can kill all 3 units. Imperial Decree doesn't let you like assign damage individually like you would be able to in like Magic, where if you have like a 5 attack creature that has Death Touch and you're attacking to 5 units, you can like assign 1/1/1/1/1. This game you cannot do that. You must assign like full lethal damage before you can assign damage to the next target, but you can choose the order in which you do that. So if it's something like recruit Vanguard Captain and you're attacking in with your own Vanguard Captain, you can assign 1 damage to the recruit, 1 damage to the second recruit, and then 1 damage to the Vanguard Captain, and it'll kill all 3 units. So Imperial Decree has its uses, but Grand Stratagem is kind of just better on average. The Vanguard Captain in that scenario would be at 8, which would eat the 2 recruits plus Vanguard Captain plus more. So stratagem is better on average, but just be aware, like game one when you're playing Imperial Decrees, that is something that you're allowed to do. Ahri, I think, is probably also in like the 60-40 range. It also like could be in the 55-45 range. It's super coin flip dependent. I think you're like slightly favored in game one. It does depend on who goes first. If Ahri misses her 2-drop, you instantly win. If you win the coin flip, you're pretty happy. If you lose the coin flip, it can be difficult, but I think you can still get there. Call the Week's really good in this matchup. If they're trying to hold in the battlefield with Watchful Sentry plus other units, you can run recruits to trade with Watchful Sentry and then Call the Week, stuff like that. Singularity is really good. The Singularity kills basically every unit that Ahri has except Watcher. Watcher, you can run one recruit into it and it's like, okay. Since she has access to green, she can hit over that. So that's something you need to be careful of. But everything else dies. Ahri, Sona, those are kind of your big targets for Singularity. I think you can do it. It's definitely a losable matchup though. Her going first where she plays Grove, that matchup is like so that game is so unwinnable. That game is so hard. What you really need to do is if they have a 2-drop turn one, you call the week and be player recruit, and you just pray that they don't have a sprite, and then like that matchup's playable. And if they don't have a sprite and you can call a week and you can get in, you have like a chance to win this game. You're going first game with Arena's Greatest. You're pretty favored. Ahri has a difficult time kind of coming back from the tempo when you're going first. The way I've been approaching this matchup recently is playing Vilmaz game one to have the greatest chance of winning game one. If you win game one, you're pretty happy. You just sacrifice game two. What you do is you play Trevarian Warcamp game two. Trevarian Warcamp is like a horrible battlefield. It's Ahri. She gets +1 if she's defending there, and all your units get nothing for attacking in there. Like your ones remain as ones for Trevarian Warcamp if you're attacking because of the Ahri legend. So Warcamp actually really plays against you. So the way I've kind of been doing it is like I just play game one and try to win game one with Vilmaz, sack game two with Grove Trevarian Warcamp, and then play game three with Arena's Greatest Aspirants and just play it out like that. I think it's fine. It's like somewhere in this range. Darius is also somewhere in the range of like 60-40, 55-45. It's somewhere around there. Lee Sin. I have like no matchup experience against Lee Sin. Nobody plays this deck. I think it's bad. Like I think Lee Sin's a bad deck. So I don't expect you to be able to lose this matchup. He is expending a lot of mana buffing units. If you can remove them, you're pretty happy. This matchup I expect to feel a lot like mid-range G, but easier. Green, again, has like a really hard time dealing with a lot of units. So as long as you can keep a lot of units on board, Green doesn't really have a way of stopping you from playing Imperial Decree and winning the game. They can, if they, the reason Master Yi is difficult is because they don't have to commit many units onto battlefields to be able to score points and hold. Lee Sin wouldn't really have the benefit of that. They get +1 instead of +2, and they have to spend resources to give the +1 to the units on defense. So you're not really too concerned about Lee Sin having a slightly better time attacking than Master Yi does, because you're not really planning on holding anyways. What's harder for them is Lee Sin needs to commit more units to try and hold battlefields, commit more units to try and take battlefields. So that leaves them more vulnerable to your removal, and you should be able to just stratagem and win this matchup. Yasuo, I'm not super sure. It's also somewhere in this range. I think it's like 55-45. In the last skirmish that I played last week, I played against two Yasuos. I played Yasuo in quarterfinals, and I played Yasuo in semifinals. It's like a pretty funky matchup. If Yasuo draws correctly, it can be difficult for you. I think they only run 2 Defies typically in like the Galewin's Yasuo list. So drawing Call the Week is really important in this matchup. Your 3 Might units are also really important. Like your Daring Poro, your Trevarian Glory Seeker, your Vanguard Captains, your Noxian Drummers, all really good in this matchup. because they play a lot of twos. They play Clockwork Keeper, they play Traveling Merchant, they play Tide Turner, they play Stalwart Poro. Stalwart Poro is the only one that's capable of going to 3. All the other ones are 2. So the way you generally approach these green matchups is you approach their units with larger units. You approach their 2s with 3s. You approach their 3s with 4s to force out interaction, and then you react based on the interaction that you have. That's why you hold Call to Glory in hands. Just in case. It would be something like you run a 3 into their 2, they'll give it +2, you Call to Glory it, you go to 6, and they're at 4. If they want, they can play one more buff spell to trade, and then it's like a 3 for 2, which is fine. You're usually not too upset about that. That's generally the way you approach this matchup. Mind Splitter is kind of annoying running into it. Yasuo is kind of annoying, but this unit or this deck doesn't do fantastic with holding. So you generally just need to out-tempo it, try to leverage your sprites to be able to force out interaction, get points, make your opponents feel bad about attacking into certain battlefields. Leona, this is also just a 73rd matchup. I've played against a decent number of Leonas. I don't think I've dropped a game. I haven't dropped a set to Leona before. Leona doesn't run enough units. Stun is like completely useless into wide boards. It's really good into tall boards. The buff is like not a significant payoff. Like Leona Zealot just does not do anything into this deck. Leona Determined like barely does anything into this deck. It dies miserably to Call the Weak. It dies miserably to Singularity. It dies to Imperial Decree and Stratagem. It kind of dies to everything. It dies to Sprites. They do not want to be Stunning Sprite. Stunning Sprite is so miserable for Leona. This deck should not be losable. Teemo, it's like also in like the 60-40, 55-40 range. If you asked me like 3 weeks ago, I would probably put it like 50-50, or like the 55-45. I'm like, the more I play it, the more I think it might actually be 60-40. This matchup does like require a lot of experience. It's really finicky. The way I've been approaching this matchup is you need to flip Teemo. If you can do like even trades and force them to flip Teemo, you're usually in pretty good shape. So if it's something like Tide Turner on battlefield and then Teemo hidden, you just run 2 recruits into there, trade with the Tide Turner, force him to reveal Teemo. You let him hold the battlefield, and then next turn he's forced into really awkward positions. Usually it's like they'll play a 2-drop and then like retreat Teemo to base, or like they'll play a unit on top and then like bring Teemo back to hand and then hide Teemo again. The problem is like they invest so much into that one battlefield, you kind of just annoy them, force them to spend a shit ton of resources on protecting Teemo, and just score points from the other battlefield. You have more units than them, you can kind of leverage that. And Singularity, Call the Weak. Well, Singularity is really good. Call the Weak's kind of okay. If there's sprites on board, Call the Weak's completely worthless. But if they don't have sprites on board, Call the Weak is pretty good. You have to be really, really careful about using Call the Weak because they can reveal Sprite Call and then call the Sprite, which sucks for you. So you do need to be careful about playing Call the Weak, but it is a good spell. A lot of them, if they think that they're going to be able to get away with it, they're going to hide Consult the Past. You can take advantage of this by running units in to force out the Consult the Past and take their battlefields away from them. I think it's 60-40. Like, this matchup can have some difficulty. They will sometimes play Singularity, and sprites are really, really annoying for you. So it is something kind of to keep an eye out on. But I think it is Viktor favored. MF, this is just another, like, Aurora matchups are so easy for this deck. Aurora just, like, cannot compete with this deck. It's too slow. Even if they're dropping Aurora turn 3, turn 4, like, you just score points too quickly. Viktor has a really, really easy time dealing with the first unit that comes out of Aurora. So what that means is by the time they have played Aurora and gotten 1 tick out of the Aurora, you should be at somewhere around 6, like 5 to 7 points by the time that happens. because then you can Call the Weak or Hidden Blade, whatever's there, and then kind of just run in, and then you should be able to score to 7. And then once you're at 7, you're basically guaranteed to win the game. They can put like infinite units onto the battlefield. You only need to draw one Imperial Decree or one Grand Stratagem to be able to instantly win the game. You get additional draws as well if you're able to score onto the battlefield when you're at 7. You can hide Consult the Past, hide Hidden Blade, so that when they Mind Splitter onto you, they aren't going to be like hitting anything that's too valuable if you're not holding Grand Stratagem or Imperial Decree. And then the next turn that rolls over, you can reveal Consult the Past or reveal Hidden Blade to be able to draw 2. You're seeing like 3 cards a turn. You can see up to like 3 or 4 cards a turn. So the chance that you're eventually going to draw into Imperial Decree or into Grand Stratagem is super, super high. And you have so many turns to draw into it that MF has a really, really hard time winning the match against you. Sett. This one is a interesting matchup. There's not like a ton of Sett players in my local scene, so it's hard to evaluate this matchup. I think it's like this 45-55 area. It might be like the 40-60 area. It's a little bit hard to tell. I do need more experience into it. I'm going to put it 45-55 for now. Because this matchup can be really tricky. Their units are so sticky that it's actually hard to generate an advantage against Sett. You're expending resources to not remove his units, and then he is able to remove your units by just fighting them and beating over them. So it can be really, really tricky. They have challenge to be able to snipe Viktor in base, and they also have Call to Glory. So your Call to Glories are not even that good because you're going to run smaller units into them, Call to Glory, and then they're going to Call to Glory, and you're going to lose the combat anyways, which really, really sucks. So yeah, this matchup's difficult. I do not have enough experience to say whether or not like something like this matchup's good or not. My suspicions for sideboard is you'll want like 1 or 2 face breakers, you'll want Shen, and you'll want your stratagem back. For what you're siding out is probably like Drummer. Drummer, like sprites can probably be removed. Vanguard cap or Vanguard attendants can be cut. Riptide Rex is probably good enough to keep. So yeah, you're probably siding out Vanguard attendants and then some 3-drops, or even like Daring Poro or something like that against Sett. This matchup is like also in this like 45-55 or 40-60 range. I've had a lot of issues with Annie recently, but I've had some pretty bad draws and they've had some pretty good draws, so I don't know if my experience is like biased or not. If you asked me like 3 weeks ago, I would say this matchup is like 45-55. Now like it might be leaning slightly towards like this 40-60 area, but I think it's still playable. Viktor, this matchup is like super coin flip dependent. If you're going first, you have a pretty good shot at winning the game as long as they don't have sneaky deckhand turn 1. If there's sneaky deckhand, like I've had games where it like all depends on the Annie's draw. If Annie draws really well, so I had a game where I played Daring Poro turn 1. They played sneaky deckhands turn 1. I ran my Daring Poro into them. They gusted my Poro. I played Sprite Mother. They gusted the Sprite. And at that point, like you basically instantly lose the game. Their turn 2, they played Annie Champion and got Gust back. And like, what are you even supposed to do at that point, right? So it is really dependent on the Annie's draws. You need to try to keep up in tempo with Annie, and then once you're getting to that 7 mana range where you're able to cast Singularity, you're just like keeping her board clean and then hiding Facebreaker and Hidden Blade to stop like Ride the Wind shenanigans. Be really careful against like good Annie players. They'll do things like play Vi, bait out the Hidden Blade by playing like Flash to get away from the Hidden Blade and then run a vibe back into the battlefield. So that is something you need to be aware of. That's something that can happen. Usually the way you play around this is just have 2 pieces of interaction. Like it's like 2 Hidden Blades or 2 Facebreakers. You keep mana up so that you can deal with it. Like they're not always going to have the flash in hand. It's just something you need to be aware of, that you need to be able to play around at some point. Um, be aware if they're doing that, where they're like ride the wind into the battlefield, bait hidden blade, flash back, run back. They're not going to be able to conquer your other battlefield. So if you're holding both battlefields and they need to conquer both, then you don't really need to worry about playing around that too much, unless they have like ride the wind, flash, and second ride the wind, and then you lose. But it's like a 4 card combo is pretty hard to deal with without having 2 pieces of interaction yourself. Master Yi. Okay, this list, um, the Aurora Yi, it's like 70-30. Like Aurora, you just shit on all Aurora decks for free. You don't even need to worry about it. Mid-range Yi, it's like in this 40-60 range. Like this matchup's really, really bad. You need to expend so many resources to be able to get Yi off battlefields, especially on like the Yi going first game where they're playing Grove. Like it's just like playing against Ahri. You like they play their 2-drop, you play Call the Week and play Recruit, and you just pray that you're able to get onto Grove. If you're able to get onto Grove without like dying, it'll be something like um Call the Week Recruit turn 1, and then turn 2 they'll play like a 2-2 drops or like a 3-drop or something, or Kiana, and then you run onto the battlefield. You can like onto Grove. You can play a bunch of units onto Grove and pray that they don't have enough interaction to get over Grove. If that happens, you have a really, really good chance of winning the game. Grove of the Godwillow is really like any Grove of the Godwillow game is just a war for Grove. Whoever can establish control of Grove wins the game. No deck that runs Grove when they're playing first has good ways of getting into Grove. Grove is typically played in Ahri and Master Yi. If you're able to get into Grove before them, they need to use a lot, aka Discipline on guard, to be able to get in. That's where like Shen is like really, really good into the deck. Just stacking, like playing your units directly onto the battlefield is really the way that you need to approach this. Lux, like that this matchup is not playable for Lux. Viktor does everything Lux does, but better. Lux is drawing like 2 cards. You're generating like 5 recruits, 6 recruits, 7 recruits during the course of the game. She does not have the tools to deal with this. She does not have Bellows Breath, which is coming out next set. She like plays Singularity. She's gonna snipe like Viktor in a 3-drops, and you're gonna be like, cool. I'm gonna play Faithful Manufacturer, Vanguard, Captain, play 5 more units, pass. There's just nothing Lux can do. It's not playable. Garen is the same thing as Lux. I've never played against Garen, so I don't actually even know. But I'm pretty sure this matchup is not playable for Garen. I'm pretty sure Viktor just also does everything that Garen wants to do, but infinitely better. There's like some Aurora Garen decks. Aurora instantly loses to Viktor either way, so there's not really too much that you need to deal with. So Viktor's also 70-30. You should not be losing to Viktor. Viktor himself. Okay, so this might be like the easiest 50-50, but low key, it's actually 60-40. Okay, hear me out. Viktor players are not good. Like, generally speaking, people that are bringing Viktors to locals, like Nexus Knights and Summoner Skirmishes, are not going to be that good at the game. If you're just a good player, there's a really, really good chance that you're going to be able to win again in the Viktor mirror. I think I have 80% or 70% win rate into Viktor and best of 3. This deck is tuned to be able to beat Viktor. Sprites are like incredibly good in this matchup. Lots of like typical Viktor list stuff that you're gonna see that like not my Viktor list, but like the average Viktor list that plays Watchful Sentry, Soaring Scout, Machine Evangel, a Thousand-Tailed Watcher. Like this deck is able to beat that quite easily. So like hear me out. Viktor mirror is like 60-40 favored towards you. In the sideboard, you're siding out Call the Week. You're bringing in like Noxian Drummer. Basically, Viktor mirror, you're siding out Call the Week, and you're putting in like any playable cards into your deck. So in the current sideboard, that's like 3 Facebreaker, Noxian Drummer, Shen, 2 Ledros, and Stratagem. You're cutting like the 3 Call the Weeks for Drummer, Shen, and like Stratagem. Like Stratagem kind of sucks, but it's better than it's better than Call the Week. So you kind of just play what you have to. If you have a lot of Viktors in your locals, like you can put Sprite Call and stuff into your deck. Sprite Call, is probably the best Cyan, like more Shens, I guess. This matchup's not that hard. Victor players are not that good. I think Victor's like a super, it's like a super entry level deck. So on average, the Victor players you're gonna be playing against are not gonna be that good. This is my secret Victor 60-40 matchup. Even though like in theory he's 50-50. This is my hot take. Victor's actually 60-40. Yeah, so that's kind of all I had for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions about like siding or how to approach matchups, let me know. I'm always happy to answer in the comments. Just check out my previous video. That being said, check out my previous video for the deck list. I go like pretty in depth about it. I think in the next few days or so, I'll put together a video where I kind of talk about other options that I was considering, other cards that have been cut, other cards that I was considering putting into the main deck or the sideboard. I think that will be a pretty interesting video as well. But for now, I think I'll leave it here. Make sure you like and sub. Thanks for watching.